Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode from Millennial X. And today, well, we know that South Africa is an emerging market and a lot of things are happening. There is cryptocurrency, forex trading, technology, and innovation. And many South Africans are quite concerned as to how they can be involved in this and how to not look at it as a disadvantage. Today, with us right here in studio, we have Mr. Mpho Dagada, a man who's an entrepreneur. He's an architect, but more importantly, he was a millionaire, 21 years old, and he calls himself the Bitcoin master. Mpho, welcome to the show, and we're so happy to have you. But I think we're going to dive straight into the book, How I Became a Millionaire at 21 years old. So Mpho, tell us about Bitcoin. Why is Bitcoin the thing in this day, and why was it never a thing long time ago?
I like your question. The reason why Bitcoin is a thing is because people are starting to realize that there are huge issues within the financial systems of the world. People are starting to wake up and say, but why is it that the dollar is worth so much and the African currencies are worth so much? Who decided on these things? What are these things based on? How does one control these things? How do we know that these regulations are actually proper? So people are starting to awaken to the fact that economies are actually created and some of them are being manipulated. For example, in Zimbabwe, people woke up and they'd lost everything. Pensions, everything they've ever worked for was gone because of one leader sort of misusing the system. In Venezuela, the same thing. So people are starting to wake up and realize that we have huge issues within the financial economies of the world. And because of those issues, we need to find alternatives. Alternatives that are more transparent, which Bitcoin is more transparent. Alternatives that are more digitized, because we live in a digital world. Solutions that do make sense and include everybody who's involved. And this is what the aspects of Bitcoin, this is what Bitcoin gives us. It gives us a better, more transparent system. And not only that, it self-regulates itself and stop things like corruption, etc. from happening because it's very transparent, and also not because it doesn't have a central unit of power. So it's controlled by everybody who's involved in it. And these are systems that people are looking to say, we don't want to destroy governments, but we understand that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if politicians have got the right to control money, government systems, etc., we realize that things do go wrong after some time. So things like cryptocurrency, not only looking at Bitcoin, but just blockchain solutions, speak to a more transparent and better system than anything.
So I like how you talked about how it's there for the people and how people are going to benefit from this. But let's take it back home to South African. Let's come back to the realities of South African person. And I'm going to push this in with Fourth Industrial Revolution. We know that the president has currently appointed you on that post. And first of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But the question that I want to ask then is, how is it practical for a South African who's living under, like 5,000 Rand per month, who doesn't have access to internet? How is the Bitcoin, whole cryptocurrency going to help them? How do they know which one to choose? Should I go for Bitcoin or Ripple? How do I know all these things if I don't have access to the internet, if I don't have the knowledge of Bitcoin itself? And if I'm also looking at forex traders for say, and I'm like, these people are going to rip me off, I don't trust them. Give us a 101 for a person who doesn't know anything about cryptocurrency and doesn't have the means to get knowledge about it.
All right. I think let me start by giving you a big overview of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So as part of the work that the Fourth Industrial Revolution is trying to do, is trying to say, how do we make sure that we've got control and are able to use the systems that are available, right? And I'll give you one quick example. South Africa as a country woke up one morning and we realized we don't have data on our people. The people of South Africa, their data sits with Google and with Facebook.
Yeah.
As a country, we don't have data of our people. And the reason why this has happened is because for the longest of time, Africans have always been, we've got big issues to solve, hence we're not going to go for these things. And we wake up today and we've got the biggest advertisers advertising on companies that are not part of South Africa. And we ask ourselves, how is it that a country does not have data on its own people? How is it that Google knows more than any citizen in South Africa? So for example, if you wanted to ask, what do South Africans like? Google knows more than anyone else. More than Stats South Africa, more than anything, because South Africans are interacting with these platforms on a daily basis. And this came as a result of South Africans being complacent and saying, well, we have bigger issues to solve. We're not interested in going for those things. We have huge issues to solve. We look today, what's the most commoditized and most expensive thing that people want in this world? It's data. Why didn't we go for data when data was starting? Because we thought we weren't competent, we thought we weren't capable. So the narrative is starting to change to say, look, if Africa continues on the same way that we continue by saying, hold on, before we can go for the big things, we need to start by fixing the small things. Where will that get us?
But let me step in there, and I want to step in with Fourth Industrial Revolution. So we know that South
I
Africa.
didn't get to explain the Bitcoin, but let's continue.
I just want to ask that where you are right now. So we know that South Africa is made up of Alexander and Santon. So when I'm looking at this idea that you're giving me, how can you convince me as a student from Chikwatambani, right, or Elam High School, and you're telling me of Bitcoin and, I'm going to get to learn coding in primary school? How does that help me when I don't even have like the basic necessities to enjoy a normal and a proper school life?
I like the fact that you've asked that question, because a lot of people don't realize that for you to become successful in life, you need to study certain use cases, right? So I've spent a lot of time studying certain use cases and seeing how things work. So I'll give you one use case, Dubai, right? About 50 to 25 years ago, Dubai was a desert. There was absolutely nothing in Dubai. Today, Dubai is one of the greatest nations in the world, right? The king of Dubai, or the sheikh, or whatever they call him, woke up one morning and said, let's build the biggest building in the world. The Americans said, this is impossible. This is a desert. You can't do it. He said, we'll do it. He said, we're going to build the biggest. The Burj will be the biggest. Everyone will come from all over the world and see this building, right? And when he started that, people were still saying, but hold on, we're just desert men with tents. We don't even own buildings. And this man is talking about building the biggest building. And when we look at what has happened is, over time, those people that were tentmen are now driving Ubers to transport people who are going to Dubai, for example. They're now working on resorts that people are coming to see in Dubai. They're now doing... The solution for Alexandra is not for us to go back in thinking. The solution for Alexandra is us to say, how do we build something that the world will come and actually employ these people and actually want to... How do we create an environment where world investors will come and say, I want to... For example, today, if you had to say to somebody, do you want to buy a property in Dubai? Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I want to be in Dubai. But 50 years ago, it was a desert. 50 years, South Africa was a proper functioning city. Yes, we did have apartheid, but it's a proper functioning city. Are we to say that as Africans, these Arabs are so much better than us that we can't do anything? Are we to say as Africans that our focus should be solely focusing on making toilets, building RDPs? This is what we're focusing on. Why did they skip the stages and build the tallest building when everybody says it's impossible? It's only when you do amazing stuff that the world will look at. We must realize that the world doesn't care. If we are to go back and say, we're poor, we need everybody to come and do donations, the world is not interested. We're not going to get the investors we need. We're not going to get the growth we need. But if we're to take bold strides and say, hold on, we want to participate in these big decisions, we want to be present in these things, then we get the world to participate. But without only leaving that behind, South Africa is a country where most of the budget and most of the funds do go to fixing our education, fixing the toilet system, they do go there. Fourth Industrial Revolution, there is no government fund going there. We ourselves are pulling this thing by saying, corporates, yes, we do see the toilets happening, but we need you guys to tell us, how do we move things forward? How do we get investors on board? How do we start building robots in our country? So the big argument is to say, we need to start. We need to get it right in order to fix the issues that we've got.
But let's get back to reality then. Let's bring it back to South Africa. And I love the analogy that you gave about Dubai. But my biggest question is, if I am a South African citizen and I'm looking and I'm unemployed, right? And I'm in despair. How can you guys take me out of that? How can you bring this idea of fourth industrial revolution in time I'm going to build robots? Already I'm concerned that I don't even have a job. So now robots are going to come in and take over my job. How do I really benefit? And we're talking to the South Africans that are on the ground right now, that are working hard or don't even have a job. How will they benefit from the fourth industrial revolution, from these cryptocurrencies and everything that's digital world, as I've already alluded to, that they're not part of it. They already feel excluded. So how do we make them feel like they are part of it? Is there a buy-in from the people?
I like the fact that you've asked that question, and I think the biggest issue that we have is to look at things in isolation in South Africa, right? South Africa has a huge unemployment problem, right? But the rest of the world doesn't have an unemployment problem. The rest of the world has many jobs available, right? Why is it that the rest of the world has many jobs available?
Now you tell me.
The reason they have many jobs available is because they've looked at the things that are part of the fourth industrial revolution. So I'll give you an example. When it comes to data, right? South Africa, when we checked, only has one black-owned data science company, right? The rest of the world is all about data and using data to better their systems, using data to better their things, right? If you're looking for a job, right, and you're saying, I want to capture people's documents as they enter in, right? The rest of the world does not have that available. So our issues can truly only be fixed by people that are looking ahead and bringing that future to the current situation. We can't fix it by looking back, because the unemployed person will continue to be unemployed. There's no other solution. The only solution is to stretch ourselves and say, we need to engage and look at these things. We need to have a culture of somebody saying, if you can't code by the age of 16, you are uncool. That's the culture in China. In China, if you can't code at the age of 16, people look at you like, what are you doing with your life? This is where you're supposed to be. In India, this is the culture. In South Africa, at 16, if you can't code, people are like, this is normal, you should be striking. And these are the narratives that we must change. And to change them, we do need to be robust. It needs to be an awakening of somebody saying, hold on, so many people are talking about this fourth industrial revolution. Let me actually go on Google and research what it is. Even before my teachers teach me. Let me actually take a stride into it. Because when we look at the rest of the world, it was never really government that did the work. It was more the entrepreneurs that got involved and said, hold on, we can't just watch Mark Zuckerberg build $1 billion company while we're here. Let's build something. Silicon Valley is now busy, etc. So we need these silos where incubation can happen. Great entrepreneurs pop up, do something amazing, and get the rest of the environment moving. And with that said, for those that are concerned about jobs, the only way to create jobs is to look at where the future's going of jobs, right? What jobs will be needed in the future and get involved in those jobs. That's the only way.
So another final question I want to ask about, fourth industrial revolution and cryptocurrency in the digital world is that a lot of South Africans feel that we are in the second revolution currently. We are currently in the second revolution in academics, in our schools, and in infrastructure, etc. The question then becomes, how did we and why do we take that big jump to the fourth industrial revolution without sorting out issues of the people, the quota of people in South Africa, the quota of population that's unemployed, but also what makes us think we're ready to go for that? And what would your response be to all the critics saying that no, we're in the second revolution, let's stay there. The government speech is bogus, it doesn't make sense. Fourth industrial revolution, we're not ready currently.
Yeah. The worst thing about Africa is that we don't quite realize that our natural resources and our untapped talents are leaving because of where we are, right? So for example, you ask yourself, why is it that we ship so much gold out of the country, so much chrome out of the country, so much platinum out of the country? Why do these things happen, right? And you realize when you look at it, the reason why these things are happening is because we're stuck behind, right? In terms of our skills, in terms of our development, we're stuck behind. Now, we have two choices, like any other person has two choices. Do we stay where we are, right? Or do we move on to the future, right? I'll give you an example. So, they were a group of people in the University of Johannesburg that decided that they want to create drones, right? For them to create a drone, it took about, I'm speaking under correction, it took about 36 weeks for them to create one drone, right? In China, it took them through machinery, right? 2 hours to create one drone, right? Now, this person wants to sell a drone. Okay. Yeah. One is able to fly through to China, buy the drone, bring it back. The other one is taking 36 weeks to create it. Now, the time to fly to China, buy the drone, bring it back. Let's say it takes you, 2 days because you took a flight, right? You still are far better than the South African who's creating it after 36 weeks, right? If we're to say, let's deal with the problems we have, then we're saying we're still at 36 weeks, right? Now, who's going to buy this product after 36 weeks? Because after 36 weeks in today's day and age, the drone might have changed. The camera we're creating might have changed.
Yeah.
At the end of us creating it, we're like, oh, look, world, we have a camera, and the rest of the world is like, oh, no, we're done. China's like, oh, we've innovated already, we've transformed. So we need to ask ourselves a critical question to say, we find ourselves in a bad situation. What do we do with the situation?
Okay.
Do we go to this person and say, hold on, let's allow you to create your drone in 36 weeks. And when they're done, they try and sell it. No one can sell it. The company crumbles. Or do we say, don't create the drone. Think about creating the robots.
So you can absolutely say that fourth industrial revolution, cryptocurrency, digital world can solve the problems that we currently have. Yes or no?
Yes, it can.
Okay, perfect. And the one thing I wanted to ask you as an entrepreneur, is that you've started a lot of businesses and you said you're a social entrepreneur. Is it the burden of every single rich person to be a social entrepreneur? Or is it a cool thing? Like, I have an organization. What do you do that impacts the people on the ground and South Africans? Because you said, you have a lot of burden for Africans and you really feel like you want to help them out. What are you currently doing to make sure people have this knowledge, entrepreneurship, etc.?
I think that's very, very important. And I had an opportunity to work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And what I learned at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for me was very striking and very shocking about how backwards philanthropic work is in South Africa, right? In South Africa, the billionaire donates money and sits in their luxury home, right? In America, Bill Gates is in those offices, sitting down and listening about children falling into toilets. He's present. His emotions are there. When they say to him, Bill Gates, we need more money, he's not thinking, oh no, I'm in my beautiful Lamborghini driving down the street. He's there looking at the pictures. And that's the reason why he's able to give out of his own pocket, because he's there and he's involved. And this is my issue with a lot of philanthropic work that's done, that people are signing checks, sending them over, not realizing what's going on. The check arrives, the problem is never solved, because the problems are usually bigger than what has been given or whatever the person has begged for them to receive. And my whole learning from that, when I realized that, hold on, Bill Gates is actually sitting down and solving these issues. He's taking his time to go out. His wife literally went through to Somalia, to Kenya. She sat down with those women, understood. You guys wait for 6 weeks before you get an injection. The problems are more real. When she comes back, the deployment of funds, the deployment of energy is more real because she's actually doing work. So one big issue that I find with philanthropic work is that philanthropic work is not signing the check. Because when you sign the check, what usually happens is the problem is never solved. Because remember, the reason why this person is a business person is because they've solved a problem in the world that makes them make problem. They're the best suited person to solve the problem, not necessarily the person doing the philanthropic work. The person doing the philanthropic work is somebody who's doing it from a heart perspective, right? The person with the money should be there to see this is the problem. He should be the one to go and say, this girl does not attend school because she doesn't have a pad, and see what is the solution she's doing currently. He must be able to engage with her. How does this make you feel? He mustn't just sit down and watch a video. So that's my big perspective on it. And I've done a lot of work when it comes to going into communities and actually being on the ground and serving. And when I go there, it's a huge striking realization to be like, oh snap, the solutions we think about are not enough. So I'll give you an example. We went to this place in Soweto, it's called Mpho, right? It's a shack community. And the reason why they call it Mpho is because they realize that these people are trying life. These shacks might be blown away tomorrow, you know. And when we got there, we bought blankets, we bought food parcels, and we were handing out, right? And I had prepared a speech, like a motivational speech, right? And obviously we got there, gathered the community around, sang some songs, etc. And I was ready to give my speech. And I said to the guys, I said, you know what, my speech is not going to work here, right? Because the solutions I thought these people struggle with
are not going to be relevant.
I'm not going to be relevant. And my solutions were like, let's build a little farming project. When I got there, I'm like, these people are on shack upon shack.
Yeah.
Where is this farming project going to work, you know? I'm thinking, let's donate some books. These people don't even have electricity. Wow, when are they going to read these books? Because when they come back from work, so I realized that snap, all my solutions as this great entrepreneur are outdated because I haven't been with the people. I then decided, you know what, before I think of these solutions, I need to go to that community and sit there for a day and realize what are these issues. And upon doing that, I then realized, the issues actually don't need just food being thrown, etc. The issues are actually much bigger. These people need somebody to advocate for them, to say, where is their housing, education? These are so that. Do you get what I'm talking about? And this is an example. But it's a real thing. So what I'm trying to say is, when it comes to the business people, they do have that responsibility. But beyond that responsibility, their responsibility is not to give money. Beyond their money, their responsibility is to give of themselves and their times and the solutions that would actually work.
So Mpho, just wrapping up here, we've learned a lot about Bitcoin. I think the fourth industrial revolution, I think many people might still have a bit of questions, but we're going to allow them to email you, go to your website, attend one of your seminars. But I think one big question to you is, looking at a millennial right now who's watching this episode, what is your biggest advice to them when it comes to cryptocurrency, when it comes to getting involved in the digital world, getting a job actually, or making a way to be involved in the fourth industrial revolution and not feeling like you're set back or machines are taking over? What do you tell that simple millennial who doesn't even have data right now to watch this? What can they do to improve their life and to be part of the moving market, which is South Africa right now?
Very interesting. I spent, so as I've said to you, I spent a bit of time in the US with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, traveling the universities. And I had a very rude awakening when I got there, because in South Africa, when I engage with young people, I find that, I match up. Do you get what I mean? I find that I match up. My knowledge is matching up. When I got to the US and I was engaging with very young, even people that are younger than me, I realized that I don't match up. And it was that very rude awakening to be like, I'm sitting in a room and I'm doubting my own opinion, because I realized that the stuff that these people are saying is phenomenally, it's well researched and very thorough in the process that they took to do the research.
But then, how would I research if I don't even have access to internet?
Okay, very good question, right? And for me, understanding how they got to that level, right?
Yeah.
So this is me understanding how they got to the level. I'm trying to figure out, how do these people get to this level? And I'm trying to understand to them, why do you think like this? How did you? And they said to me, the reason they think like this is because they've taken it upon themselves to solve these problems, right? So for example, I sat down with one guy who's solving a problem for a country. It's to do with cocoa, like how you process cocoa, etc., right? And this guy is from Canada, right? And he's solving an issue for Africans on how to do cocoa. And I don't really know much about cocoa, right? And he's talking about a blockchain solution. And I'm like, what? And then he says to me, oh, in Africa, I want to solve the housing issue, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, how are you going to solve the housing issue? And he explains to me, and I can quickly give you the solution, but it's a brilliant solution that's working currently in Soweto, right? And he says these things, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, snap, I'm in South Africa, looking at my little scope here, my little world here, my little business. And these guys are outside of our country thinking about the solutions. Every single person I met had better solutions about Africa than I did. Do you get what I mean? And this was my rude awakening to be like, hold on, Africans are sleeping on themselves. We are not finding solutions to our own problems, and the rest of the world is finding solutions. And when they come here, they've got more power, more money, more authority. We can only but be the slaves of their solutions. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
They give us their solutions, they tell us you fit in this solution. And this is my thinking to say, as Africans, we need to get over the thinking of when there's a problem, we strike to fix it. Let's begin to engulf these solutions. You know, it's so embarrassing to say that Africans never think about other countries' solutions. Do you get what I mean? We should be thinking. I said to a friend of mine the other day, I said, my current obsession latest is Mozambique. I'm so obsessed about Mozambique. He said, why? I said, Mozambique has got a GDP growth of 4%, South Africa's got a GDP growth of 1.7%, right? I have no right to be thinking about Mozambique. I'm in South Africa. It doesn't make sense, right? But I've taken upon myself to say, when I'm reading in the evening, I'm reading about Mozambique. I'm understanding the challenges of Mozambique. Give you a case study. Mozambicans, a mine was started in Mozambique. They hired these Mozambicans, right? Well, after these Mozambicans started working, after the first month of getting their first salary, these Mozambicans didn't come back to work. The mine company said, guys, why didn't you come back to work? The Mozambicans said, oh, we thought the money you gave us is the money we need for the rest of our lives. We're happy, right? And this company went back and said, no, this is not how employment works. And this Mozambican says, oh, we've never been employed. We live in our rural societies. We don't know how employment works. They're like, hold on, there's contracts. Those things you signed were contract. They're like, oh, we've never signed anything in our life. We have our cows, we have our donkeys, we have our mud huts. We don't need this thing. And it doesn't make sense for us. The money you gave us is enough. Why are we coming back? And these people are like, well, you're coming back so you can buy more cars and more houses. They're like, oh, we don't need cars. I can walk to my friend's place in the village. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So these are the Mozambican problems. And I started engulfing myself in the problem, saying, oh my goodness, Mozambique has got so much opportunity that these guys don't realize. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. Like if I tell you that, you're like, oh snap, what do they mean they're not working? Yeah. You know, this is how you make more money. They should be. And this is what the rest of the world is doing on behalf of Africa. And I bring it back home. We've got African problems. Yes. Why can't we start thinking about, you engulf yourself? So for example, I've been engulfing myself in the problem thinking, okay, so these Mozambican communities, there's a mine. And by the way, the gas that's been mined is being shipped to Europe, right? They don't care. They're like, the money you've given us is enough. And I'm like, no, guys care. These people should not be mining. Tell them to stop. You guys should be involved. That's where my heart is coming from. But to them, it's like,
so basically, a lot of South Africans are like young people not researching. They're not reading.
They're not engaged. If I had to ask young people, what's the solution for ESCOM? They don't even know.
Yeah.
I know exactly what the solution for ESCOM is. I know exactly how it should be implemented, right? If I was a greedy man, I would definitely implement it on my own, make all the billions and that's it, together with foreign investors, because they know it too. The whole world knows what the solution to ESCOM is.
Do you think you have that knowledge because of the privilege you've had? You went to a proper high school, the privilege from your family, and you compare it to a person from a village who doesn't have that sort of privilege. Is it a privilege thing or is it a knowledge thing?
It's more a I want to solve problems thing.
Okay.
More than privilege, more than knowledge. So I'll end off with this example. When I went over to Nigeria, and I didn't even go to Nigeria. It was like a Skype session where I was just speaking to some entrepreneurs in Nigeria, right? And I had learned that in Nigeria, they don't have good banking systems, right? And I'm trying to find out, what do people do with their banking systems, right? And you find that even the most uneducated of people are coming up with these solutions when it comes to banking systems. So education in itself, to be very honest, Bitcoin, my lecturers knew nothing about it. I taught them, right? I'm currently working with universities to develop these things. I can't ever claim that I learned this from a university. I learned this from Chinese blogs. I learned this from reading on the internet. I learned this from YouTube. I learned this from Google. So I can never claim that the education system taught me or created me in any way. Knowledge does not sit there. If knowledge did sit there, then the professors themselves would own universities.
Yeah.
There's a reason why professors are employees and they'll never own universities. There's a reason that's going on. There's a reason why entrepreneurs don't usually go to these universities. If you look at the CEOs of the world, they're not the doctorates, etc. That's not where knowledge sits. There you're getting a regurgitation of somebody who's researched something and is giving you that knowledge. What I'm interested in to say, the knowledge that no one else knows yet, the problems that aren't available yet, how do we solve those? And that knowledge does not come through you actually going to university, etc. No, it doesn't come like that. That knowledge comes very differently. And that knowledge starts with a hunger. When you speak to somebody, you're looking for that knowledge. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for example, when I'm speaking to you, there's already solutions that I'm thinking of. Okay, this, that. It's an inherent thing that one develops on their own. There's no way textbooks can teach me this. I've tried to look for solutions on ESCOM. They aren't, people don't have them. But if you go outside, then you can find them. You can find the solutions. So it's very dynamic in the way that it works.
So I think in wrapping up, a lot of people will probably still have questions about cryptocurrency, its regulation, how do I get involved, how can people reach you, how can people get access to your books, how can people talk to you about the fourth industrial revolution and get involved in the charity work that you're doing and etc.
Cool. People can reach me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. My handle is Mpho Dagada. My website is mpod.com. My book's also available online as well as bookstores. But I am very available, especially for young people that are looking for solutions. I'm very available. I do set out time to say every single week I want to have time with young people for solutions. I am very
Thank you so much for joining us. This is Millennial X. We have Mpho Dagada right here, and you can get his book everywhere in every single store. And come on, start the conversation. Ask us about many things, Industrial Revolution, and get in contact with him. Thank you, Mpho.
Thank you.
Thank you.